Everybody, I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting for the town of Wakefield for April 5th, 2024. Just a reminder, the meeting is being audio and video recorded, posted to the town of Wakefield website and WCAT. If you could keep your microphones muted unless you're asked to speak. And when you do speak clearly as closed captioning is enabled. The transcript will be provided through that system. Item number 2 is attendance. I have Steve Mayo present. Joe Conway, I'm not sure if he's here. I have Joe Connors, or John Connors, strike that. I have Bill Renault. Matt Keeley, are you here, Matt? I didn't see him on just yet. Myself, Traffic Advisory Chair Joe Anderson. I have Dan and Lois Benjamin. I see you guys. Good morning. All right, we're just waiting for Matt Keeley's here. Good morning, Matt. And Joe Conway's also present. So we have everybody present. Item number 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. Dan, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Dan. Item number 4 is public engagement. Since we really just have a couple of items on the agenda today, I'll ask that anybody that has anything for traffic advisory, including the agenda items 5 and 6, which are proposed residential developments for Nahant Street, and item number 7, which is a sign request that has to do with no idling signs at the schools. If you raise your hand, and I'll give you up to 3 minutes to make any comments or questions. I did have a resident, Karen McMaster, if she's on. She submitted a request to speak at public engagement. If you're on, you can unmute and address the committee. Another call for public engagement. If anybody would like to address the traffic advisory committee, if you could raise your hand or unmute and identify yourself.
Lieutenant Anderson, Tom Lucy, with the Board of Appeals. Are we going to have an opportunity to ask questions or make a comment after the presentation?
So I will provide an opportunity afterwards, after the presentation. But there were some members of the public that expressed that they wanted to address the committee prior to the presentation. So I'll definitely allow for that, Tom. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
All right, final call for any members of the public who wish to address the traffic advisory committee prior to any presentations or agenda items. Okay, moving on to item number 5, proposed residential development for 32 Nahant Street. A transportation impact assessment and site plan review for a proposed 32 multifamily unit development. I have an attorney representing the developer.
That's Lieutenant Paul Haverty for 32 Nahant Street LLC. Our traffic engineer, Scott Thornton, is here. He has a presentation to make.
Okay, good morning. And Scott, I'll make you a co-host so you can share.
Great, thank you.
All right, all set, Scott. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Lieutenant and members of the committee. Okay. So thanks for taking the time to meet with us today. I'm Scott Thornton, a traffic engineer with Vaness and Associates, here to present a summary of our findings from the traffic study. As indicated, Attorney Paul Haverty is here on behalf of the project as well, and our site engineer, Chris Barajas, is due to join. He's running a little bit late, but he should be here within 5 to 10 minutes. I have about 6 or 7 slides to go through, and then I'll be happy to open it up for any questions. In terms of the project, 32 Nahant Street contains 32 and 32A Nahant Street, which is an existing 2-family home, and also 36A Nahant Street, single family home. There's 2 curb cuts under existing conditions. The project involves raising the existing buildings and constructing a single multifamily building of 26 units. The project was downsized from what was analyzed in the traffic study. We didn't update the traffic study, figuring that this provides a conservative treatment of the project impacts. But what was analyzed in the study was 32 units, and the project has been downsized to 26. The project will be providing 1 curb cut to Nahant Street, and 42 parking spaces are proposed. In terms of the traffic study, the study area that was reviewed included pretty much the length of Nahant Street from the Main Street North Ave intersection out through a couple of intersections with Traverse Street, Middlesex Street, and Hart Street, and then out to the Nahant Street and Farm Street intersection, and also the intersection of Hemlock Road with Farm Street. Data for the study was collected in December of 2023, once we had an input on the study area, the scope of the study area, and we collected traffic counts during the 7 to 9 a.m. weekday period, and also the 2 to 6 afternoon time period. In terms of the traffic study and the trip generation for this project, again, with the downsizing from 32 to 26 units, a 32 unit development was not going to generate a lot of peak hour vehicle trips anyway. Looking at about 12 during both the morning and the evening time period. With a downsize to 26 units, I just ran these calculations yesterday just to show that the trips would be expected to decrease. So now we're looking at 10 trips during the morning and the evening time period. So really a minimal traffic generator in terms of peak hour traffic activity. With the parking, again, what was analyzed in the initial study was 32 units with 42 parking spaces. That met the standard for the town for 1.5 spaces per unit. The currently proposed design of 26 units and 42 parking spaces results in a parking rate of 1.61 spaces per unit, and so that allows for a few extra spaces for visitors. So then, in terms of a quick summary here, the project represents a minimal increase in commuter peak hour traffic. We think that because the site is really situated advantageously when it comes to public transit, being 3 minutes from Main Street and 13 minutes from North Ave with the commuter rail, we think that a lot of people or residents are likely to use public transit. When we add the project traffic into the future conditions, the traffic analysis indicated that there was no change in intersection operations or level of service at any of the intersections reviewed. As I mentioned, the project complies with the town bylaw for the parking requirements, and traffic volume increases between 0.1 and 0.3% on roadways leading into or out of the study really reinforces the fact that it's a minor traffic generator for for the area. So that's it in a nutshell. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Scott, how many, are they all 2 bedrooms or 1 bedrooms?
I think they're studio to 1 bedrooms. I believe that
They have
should.
to have a 3, wouldn't they?
It should be 3-bedroom units. The subsidizing agencies require a minimum of 10% of units be at least 3 bedrooms.
Can you go over the traffic flow on site? I think a few things that I'm looking for is the traffic flow on site, where visitors would go, where delivery vehicles would go, Amazon and even larger vehicles, and then sightline distances I'd like to see.
Yeah, so I think the this is on yet. Chris, is that something you want to go over, the details
Sure,
on the
I'd be
circulation?
happy to. Sorry, I'm a little bit late, Lieutenant.
No, not a
For the
problem.
record, Chris Sparagus from the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Sparagus. And is this your screen that you're sharing, Scott?
Yes, actually, let me
Okay.
get out. Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I think I'm just so that I could show you quickly. Let me just do that real quick. I think the host will have to enable me real quick.
Yep, you should be all set now.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I have that same layout plan pulled up here. So if we can, let's see, just zoom out a little bit. Obviously, our entrance is on the west side of the property. So folks would come in, 2-way entrance here. We would be closing off the other entrance that exists over on this area here. So we're eliminating one of our curb cuts. So as folks come in, whether they're visitors or residents, there are parking fields left and right, 24-foot wide aisle going all the way from front to back. Straight away is our the dumpster corral. And then we have a delivery parking space dedicated over here in this corner, so that a delivery vehicle could come in, maneuver and get in and then get out. And then we also have a couple of dedicated visitor parking spaces in the back corner here. And then the rest of the parking is left and right of the parking field. These shaded areas here are actually undercover. So this is the part of the building on this end of the building and on this side of the building where the upper floor comes, the upper floors come up and over these parking spaces. There are 7 parking spaces here undercover, and then the 2 handicap spaces and 4 additional spaces here that are also undercover.
Can I ask the question, will you have any charging stations?
So we have identified 2 parking spaces for charging stations right next to the handicap spaces in the back right here.
Okay.
This is a sidewalk area, so the charging station, the charging apparatus would be right at the end of the parking spaces here.
Chris, I think what I'd like to see as far as I do like that there's a dedicated delivery vehicle space, but getting those delivery vehicles to that space is going to be important. So maybe, obviously, your trash contractor would know where to go, but the delivery vehicles may not. So maybe some signage that directs them off of Nahant Street. Because my concern is whenever we have a development with limited parking availability, especially no real feasible on-street parking options, we're going to get the vehicles that park on the main road and either, park on the sidewalk or take up part of the travel lane. So to avoid that, I think some signage to direct them to that space would be good. Deliveries would be something that we'd want to see.
Okay, yeah, then trying to come up with a smart spot for it, right? You want to try to tell the person as soon as possible, right? And then after a while, they'll learn that behavior. So we'll work with Scott and come up with a good location for that sign.
Closed caption.
Everybody could mute their audio, please. Thank you. Okay, and then this may be a question for Scott, but sightline distances and what he found there for the entrance and exit.
Yeah, sure. So we did do some speed measurements out there. We clocked average speeds around 24 or lower. The 85th percentile speeds were 29 miles per hour eastbound and 26 miles per hour westbound. When we looked at the stopping sight distance requirements, it was 190 feet in one direction, 165 feet in the other. We have between 522 and 566 feet of the stopping sight distance, and then for the intersection sight distance, it's a little bit of a longer requirement, but that's also noted as desirable, where the stopping sight distance is really what's the minimum that's required. For the intersection sight distance, we had a maximum of 320 feet that would be recommended, and we had between 350 and 575 feet available. So we've got good sight distances out there.
No, I
Just
think
one,
that,
sorry,
yeah,
Joe, go ahead.
actually, yeah, go ahead, Matt. I'll have you touch
Yeah,
on that.
just one follow up on site distance. Scott, I know you typically say in your traffic studies that there won't be any signage or plantings that are greater than 3 feet near the driveway. And I'm no landscape architect by any means, but looking at the landscape plan, it looked like there was some plantings that were taller than 3 feet at the driveway. Just something to check on.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we can work with Chris to make sure that there's nothing that exceeds 2 feet that's in the site triangle.
Great.
I think also, too, just adding in, I think you're using it as a snow storage area. I think that probably would not be a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a couple areas, I think, for snow storage, but we'll definitely take a look at that, Bill.
I have a quick question about that. So we've proposed 2 trees actually in those front 2 islands, a black tupelo and a red maple. So are trees also a no-no or?
No, those are fine. It looked like there were some grasses that were 3 feet tall. And again, I'm not a landscape architect, so I could have
Gotcha.
read it wrong, but I just wanted to flag it because it looked like there may have been a 3 foot tall grass
I
on
see that,
the
Matt,
on the
actually
east on
across
the east
the
side.
front side there, yeah, along the sidewalk. All right, we'll take a look at that site triangle like Scott
Thank you.
said. Okay, thanks.
Great.
All right, Chief Sullivan, do you have anything for us with this development? Chief, you're on mute still.
How's that?
Good, we have it.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate the reduction in size. I don't think it makes a difference. My primary concern, and it always has been regarding this development, is how the vehicles or the trucks, delivery trucks and fire apparatus and ambulances are gonna exit the property when they're done for the reason for their stay. And I'm encouraged by the fact that they added a delivery spot, but I'm not convinced that that spot's gonna be able to accommodate all the traffic that's gonna come to that building. In other words, I'm concerned about them having to back out of the driveway into Nahant Street, which is a very narrow, very busy street.
Chief, I think my concern would be, from a police perspective, looking at, your fire operations over the years, you're likely to take up some, if not all of Nahant Street, to fight a fire there, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, Scott, what do we have for road widths there? Do you know, because it's pretty narrow.
Yeah, I think it's probably 24 to 26 feet.
Yeah, I can tell you, anytime we have an accident on Nahant Street, it essentially shuts down Nahant Street, right? And we try to find ways to detour it, which, depending on where it is, and in this location, it would take quite a bit of our shift to adequately detour this side of Nahant Street. We'd have to have an officer down by, Melvin or Valley or somewhere around there. So now you have an officer or two, especially if it's at night, or inclement weather. There's a couple of offices down there. There's a couple of offices at the junction, which is Main, Nahant, and North Ave, and then you have the offices tending to the accident itself. So you could essentially shut down an entire shift just with one crash on Nahant Street. And Scott, I'm sure you looked at the traffic crash data. I know in at least one of your transportation impact assessments, it didn't quite reach the MassDOT, significant level.
Yeah.
It was getting up there. It was closer, in my opinion, than some of the other developments that we see. I think Nahant Street is it's a very busy street. It's a dangerous street. I think if you look at the 85th percentile, it doesn't look like all that much, but if you look at the amount of speeds that are 30 and above, even 39 and above, and some of the data shows that we have hundreds of vehicles that are exceeding the 33 to 36, 36 to 39, and 39 and above. So those speeds are, even though they're not the 85th percentile speed, I think the reason you see that 85th percentile speed, and I can show you if I share my screen here. Can everybody see Google Maps there? I think this is the reason you see some of those lower speeds and why it's skewed sometimes, right? You have quite a bit of a traffic backup, quite a bit of queuing that goes. This is just I just pulled this up from Google Maps. It happens to show whatever time of day they were out there. This is an excessive amount of queuing that leads up to what we call the junction, which is Main, Nahant, and North Ave. We have a crossing guard here. She has a very dangerous intersection to handle during school drop-off and school pickup. She's had us come out several times to help her because of just the gridlock that's causing this intersection. So I think you can see at any given day or time, this is definitely going to impact or skew those speed results. And I think that even though this development has been reduced in size and, it's not a massive development compared to some of the others that we've seen in town. I mean, just look at where the queuing is, right? So if it adds, 10 trips or, a couple of trips during peak hours, so 2 more vehicles is going to bring us down toward Franklin. It's extending the queuing problem. And, there are some proposed infrastructure improvements to the signals, but those are going to be a ways away and they're not in place right now. And one of them involves the addition of traffic signals to the Broadway intersection down here. And, that's a ways off if it happens. I know that Bill has that on his agenda, but these are existing conditions right now. So I think that adding trip generation to this area, it just causes our roadways to be more clogged. It causes more queuing. And the problem we've seen with excessive traffic queuing is on the police side of things, it's aggressive driving. I know it's anecdotal, but I've been a police officer for almost 2 decades. A lot of what I see during peak hours with aggressive driving is people that are just sick of waiting in traffic. They're late, they're trying to get to where they're going, and it results in some of these vehicles, if there is any type of potential outlet, they're driving on the wrong side of the road to try to get to that outlet, which is exactly why on the Farm Street end, we have 2 roundabouts going in because, traffic advisory, we know that roundabouts aren't always ideal. However, roundabouts keep traffic flowing. And if you keep traffic flowing, in my opinion, it reduces the amount of likelihood that vehicles are going to try to seek an alternate route if they are moving to some degree. So there is a lot of queuing here. I do have a lot of concerns about adding any significant development beyond a handful of housing units to Nahant Street. Chief, did you have something for us?
Oh, 1 second.
Okay.
Joe, I have a question for Scott.
Sure.
The traffic study says it was done in December of 23. What were the dates of the study?
December, I think 19th, 20th, the intersection counts were done on the 20th. But I think the ATR data, the tube data was collected probably either the 19th and 20th or the 20th and 21st.
Okay, so just 3 days worth of data.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's the standard. I think, and we did look at the crash data, as you indicated, Lieutenant, and really it's at either end of Nahant Street where the significant crashes are. That's where the numbers of crashes are. Along Nahant Street, it's, there's really just a few crashes over a 5-year study period, not a whole lot, and the averages even at either end of Nahant are 3.4, 3.8 crashes per year. And I know we're any crashes get concerned, but I think, as you indicated, people there's some bad behavior that is always going to exist. But with these, and you mentioned these are existing conditions, and a project that adds 10 trips during the peak hours is, it's a really minor effect. When that traffic gets split out in either direction on Nahant Street, I think it reduces the effect of the increase from that development even more.
So I definitely hear what you're saying, Scott, and I think that you have to look at what data you have in front of you, and you're not out there every day seeing the crashes. So
No, absolutely.
And we are. The thing is, yes, you're right. There is a more statistically significant number of crashes near the intersections. That's very true. However, the number of single car crashes that we have, especially in inclement weather, they trend to be much more serious. And when you see the statistics from Mass DOT that say injuries, but they're not fatalities, I can tell you that a lot of the crashes I've personally responded to that are single car crashes, I don't know how they weren't fatalities, and I don't know how the injuries weren't more significant. They're very, very fortunate. So I think that's something that you just don't have. You have the numbers, but I'd like to present that to the committee to consider with this, that the crashes I've responded to that may be fewer than near the intersections trend to be much more serious. I think that's a speed issue, that's a geometry issue, which is it's the nature of the roadway. It's the fact that Nahant Street is a major cut through. It's becoming more of a cut through as we see traffic build up and queuing on our other main roads like North Ave and Main Street. So those crashes are significant. I think if you were to contact the municipal light department, you would see that they've replaced several poles over the years there. So those smaller number of crashes that you speak of, if you're looking at the data set, it may not look as statistically significant, but if you look at the number of poles that have been replaced, midway down the hunt, not at an intersection per se, I would offer to you that that's very significant, and we're looking to reduce that. So that's what I have there. Bill, what do you have for us?
So I got a couple things. Obviously, I think the queuing creates a problem because we can't necessarily take that left into the site, and I've brought that up a couple of times. So I think we got to do something, at least in the Hunt Street, we could do not block the intersection or something to that effect, because the queue's back there consistently. The second piece is on the overhang spots. So can you pull up the plan? Because you have support posts, right, that are in the area, basically at the stripe line, it looks like, right? And then you also have retaining walls on one, or walls, I should say, on the ends. Those spaces are going to be very difficult to get in and out of. At a standard 9 foot, you don't really have that, because I'm assuming you're losing about a foot of that, right, with the posts and the overhang.
Sorry, I was muted there, Bill.
Yep.
I haven't calculated exactly what the distance is from the posts, if you will. to the, from post to post in here at the entrance.
Mhm.
It's not unlike a parking garage. So this is not unusual for a 9x18 space.
I mean, I would say those spaces are difficult to get in and out of. I mean, typically you do those as compact spaces or something different. So, I mean, I just got a concern whether it's really feasible to get these in as shown. A little bit more room or spacing it out differently. So maybe it's impacting one or two spots and you make that a little wider, I think makes sense. But I mean, the ones, especially by the wall, I mean, those are very difficult to get in and out of.
Yeah, we
For
can,
some- for somebody driving.
we can take a look at that and see if we can improve on the width.
Yeah. I think that's what I have at this point.
Ben and Lois, what do you have for us?
Fine with handicap parking.
Mr. Mayo?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I completely agree with our subject matter experts in police and fire. I not only see this as a safety issue for the site, but I'm concerned about the whole town because if our police department is tied up there during an incident, what's going to happen in the other boroughs of Wakefield or areas of Wakefield? So too big and a real safety problem. And I do think that minimizing three crashes per year, three too many. And I seem to remember, Dan, a fatality down on this in my lifetime, if I'm not mistaken, on the
Yeah,
high.
Real.
Yeah. So I agree with our police and fire chief. There's a real safety factor. Thank you.
Scott, I would also add that I looked up our crash statistics. I think you had them at 44. We show 50 crashes during that same time period. So maybe just, I don't know, maybe if you can go back to the DOT portal and just see what those other 6 crashes may have been. I can send you what I have. We can talk offline. And maybe we can just kind of vet out what those were. I mean, it's not that it's a huge number more, but if they were serious crashes, that may be something that that may be of importance to the committee. So we can, I looked that up last night and it was just slightly off, but if those handful of crashes were significant, that could be important for us to note as well, where they were and all of that. So maybe we can talk offline with that.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I mean, I typically what we do is we use the DOT's geolocating system, which identifies the locations of the crashes, and maybe they didn't correspond to the exact intersection, but we can talk about it.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, sometimes that system catches crashes that aren't reported to us that are just paper
Right.
exchange where the police are never called. So usually, sometimes we actually see it the other way. They have more crashes reported on their system than we have on ours because of simple fender benders that
Yep.
don't respond to. But
Yep.
we can talk more offline about that. The only other thing I have is the level of service for the intersections, specifically Nahant and Main Street. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, so in general, I mean the intersection North and Main and Nahant is indicating to operate at level of service D. So that's that may be that may be what's the total of the delay there during the peak hours. I think the important thing is the relative change with the addition of the project is it stays at level of service D. When we're looking at 0.1 or 0.3% increases during the peak hours, it's not a significant change at all at that location. I know there's the queues, the real world queues that showed up on the Google Street View that indicates a different story, but based on the volumes that we collected, and I think we're pretty, we've studied that intersection a number of times. We've identified pretty consistent results there, and it's possible, as you mentioned, with the intersection of Broadway with North Ave, if that gets signalized, that has to be coordinated, obviously, with the Main Street and Nahant intersection timing. There might be an opportunity to improve operations there. At the other end of Nahant, as you mentioned, the roundabout design there, we did include that for future conditions, expecting that it'll be built in the next 7 years. And again, same thing, really not really a change due to the project and the operating levels there.
So just for members of the public, could you just give a brief explanation as to the level of service? Like A is an intersection that's operating very efficiently the way it should. I just want to dumb it down as it was once explained to me for people that may not understand exactly what we're talking about. So
yeah, sure. So level of service is a sort of it's a way of categorizing operations in a kind of shorthand manner. So level of service A represents the least amount of delay, typically under 10 seconds at either a signalized or an unsignalized intersection. It goes up to level of or down, I should say, to a level of service F, which is either more than 80 seconds of delay per vehicle over the course of an hour for a signalized intersection, or more than, I think, 50 seconds for a vehicle at an unsignalized intersection. And level service B, then there's level service B and C and D and E, and D is 35 to 50 seconds, maybe to 55 seconds, I think, for signalized intersections. And that's what we're looking at for the intersection of Main Street with North Ave and Nahant Street. And it's an average of the delays that each vehicle would experience. So you may have some approaches that are operating with a lot of delay, like for instance, Nahant Street probably operates at a higher delay or with more delay than level of service D. But if Main Street operates with less delay and there's more volume on Main Street, then that has a kind of weighting effect to the average delay that gets calculated. I don't know if that's really dumbing it down.
No, I know it's definitely something that I only learned of from my time on traffic advisory. So that's why I figured it might be helpful to any members of the public. So I appreciate that. So Bill, I guess my question is, and thank you, Scott. I guess my question is, let's say in a perfect world, things go exactly as planned and we upgrade the intersection there at the junction, and we add in another signalized intersection at North Ave and Broadway. Do you see this really improving? I mean, how much do you see it improving where we're at on Nahant Street? Because I mean, in my opinion, it's at a level D right now. Scott's saying that it's going to maintain it at a level D. My thought is, and I don't disagree with him and his findings, but it's trending toward an F, right? And as we add more development in Nahant Street, maybe this one won't exactly bring it to an F, but it's certainly not helping it, right? And I think that if it gets to an F, that intersection has failed, in my opinion, and it's going to create even more of a traffic issue than we already have, and it's going to create really unnecessary queuing that, in my experience, I know this is anecdotal, but leads to aggressive driving. It leads to crashes. It leads to a lot of issues that trickle down to the police department that, in 2024, we simply can't handle all of these traffic issues all the time with everything else that we do on a day-to-day basis. So, best case scenario, is it going to improve it to a C? I mean, what would that actually improve it to, or do you not even know?
We don't know yet. I mean, I have a corridor study being completed for Nahant Street, but I mean, I think the other piece is that we are looking at adaptive signals for all of this. So, I mean, even all the signals in the area would be talking to one another. So that's helps to be as efficient as possible. But again, with the extra vehicles on there, between this project and the other, I mean, I can't see it maintaining that level.
Bill,
Yeah.
I've been driving for 60 years and at Main Street and North Avenue, I don't know what I'm supposed to do at that stop sign. That's a red arrow. And what do I do there?
Stop if it's red. That's usually the rule.
Yeah, we'll send you a written warning, all right, in the mail. Mr. Mayo, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like, I have trouble wrapping my head around the number of trips that the trip generation. It just seems, how many parking spaces are there? And what are you saying, 10 or 12? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So if maybe you can talk to that, because it just, just by observation, it doesn't seem correct. So
Yeah, no, that's fair. And what the way I like to describe it, and Matt can probably jump in as well, but we look at the peak hours of traffic flow and of traffic generation, because that's what's identified, that's what's required in the profession, or that's what's indicated in the profession. That's what Mass DOT indicates and requests. It doesn't mean that in the course of the morning that only 10 trips are generated by the site. So it's in that peak 60-minute time period that where the site generates the most amount of traffic in the morning. Similarly, in the afternoon or evening, it's the peak 60-minute period where that traffic is generated. I know when my wife leaves at I think like 6:45. I don't leave until 8 o'clock. So, that's 2 trips that are leaving in an hour and 15 minutes difference. So people don't all leave at 7:30 to get to work or to school, and they don't all come back between 4 and 5. They don't all come back between 5 and 6. Some come back later, sooner, whatever. But the numbers that we use are dictated by the profession, by Mass DOT standards, and it's in a standard source, the trip generation manual. We have done studies, kind of follow-up counts or counts of neighborhoods to compare to trip generation results, and in a lot of cases they're similar. The time periods may shift up or down a little bit, but the volumes are pretty similar. I don't know, Matt, if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, it really is one of the most common questions we get on residential developments as traffic engineers, because it doesn't seem intuitive when you see it on paper. And just as another example, when I come into the office, I leave at 5:15, so I'm nowhere near the peak. And just over the last several years, there has been a lot of what we call peak spreading. So we focus our counts, 7 to 9, 4 to 6, but the peaks are really 4 hours now. And like Scott said, there's a number of factors that that contribute to the fact that not everybody's leaving during that one peak hour. So it really does drive the numbers down. And one other thing I like to highlight on that is that the numbers that are in the trip generation manual are based on counts at apartment complexes. So this is real data at real residential complexes that goes into those equations, and what we use for the trip generation projections.
Well, I thank you for the explanation. It just doesn't seem to match real life experience, but thank you.
Any other members of traffic advisory before we turn it over to the public?
Yeah, I just have a couple more, Lieutenant. Scott, is the building 3 stories, or is it 4? Or maybe that's a question for Chris. I'm not sure.
That's okay. It's 3 stories.
Okay. So just a minor thing, just the traffic study used mid-rise, and with 3 stories, it should be low-rise. it's not going to make a material difference in the numbers, but I just wanted to point it out because I'll put it in my memo, just to clarify that the trip generation is slightly different, but not significant at all. But just didn't want that to be a surprise from my memo. Going back to safety for a second, one other suggestion I would make, Lieutenant, the MassDOT data, because they go through the geolocation and all the coding and all that, they're always a year or two behind in terms of the data set that they consider complete. That's why we have data that was, 2016 to 2020, because that's what's available at the time. They're just typically a couple of years behind what they consider, a clean vetted set of data. We've never really gotten great direction, I guess, on what to do with 2020 data because of volumes being so much lower during COVID. So the 2020 crash data can sometimes skew averages a little bit, depending on the area. So I was wondering if it might make sense, Lieutenant, for you guys to look at more recent local data just to see if it tracks with what's shown in the table. Like if you have 20, 21, 22, 23, just as a comparison, I think that might be helpful.
Okay.
And then I think my only other question was, Scott, if you could just talk a little bit about the cut through and the tracking that you did. I was wondering, it seemed like the volumes were really low, and I don't think you did any actual like license plate tracking or anything like that because they were so low. But just wondering if you had any field observations or observations of speeds for those cut through vehicles, because that's just something we've heard at past meetings.
Yeah, and we did take a look at it, with the one issue with doing counts in December is the amount of daylight that's available to do license plate tracking is not there. So but looking at the volumes of traffic turning right onto Traverse from the Nahant and turning left from Traverse onto Nahant just didn't seem, given that the numbers of residences along Bennett and Nahant or Bennett and Traverse seemed to be, it was about 40 trips, I think, in the evening and slightly less in the morning. So it didn't seem to be that far out of the range for what we would expect for the numbers of units that were up there. We didn't look at specific speeds on either of those streets. It was really just a review of the traffic that might be, coming from north or coming from Main Street and using Bennett to Traverse to avoid the Nahant and North Ave intersection with Main Street. And one other thing before I forget, when we did this study, it was a 4-story building, and then through the downsizing of the project, they took a story off. So that's why, that's why we start with what we had.
Got it.
All set, Matt?
Yep.
Okay. Any other members of traffic advisory have anything for this agenda item before I turn it over? All right, we will start with Tom Lucy.
Hey, thanks, Lieutenant Anderson. Couple comments. First, regarding the study, you collected traffic the 19th through the 21st of December. For me, those aren't ordinary days. It's a little too close to the holiday. I would strongly suggest that counts be made on what would be considered a more ordinary day. I don't, again, anecdotal, but, I know in my workplace, there's a lot of people missing during that week right before Christmas. So I don't think this is an accurate depiction of what's happening on those streets on a daily basis. I want to reinforce what I heard from both Lieutenant Anderson and Chief Sullivan. Adding any housing units to this street at this scale is a real safety issue as far as I'm on the Board of Appeals. Many members of the board have stated that, and we believe that. So I have some significant concerns about that. The delivery was brought up. We get Amazon in my house all the time. They're not going to drive into that driveway. They're going to park on the sidewalk there. And so we need to do something more for the delivery vehicles, have that up front more, have some signage, something there that really is a visual cue for those drivers to get in there and get off the street. The other thing that didn't come up is that, and has come up at our board, is that we have a real concern with the middle school at one end and the high school at the other end of this project. Nothing was talked about in terms of pedestrian traffic. There's a lot of kids on that street every day walking to either the middle school or the high school. I'd like to know if, as part of the study, you looked at that and you had pedestrian counts. And obviously, it's obviously a public safety issue as well. I do appreciate, I see Mr. Haverty on the line, that this particular project has at least been reacting to what the board has said in terms of reducing size. So they've come with some spirit of cooperation, and that's appreciated. We've got more work to do. And hopefully they continue that spirit of cooperation going forward. I'll leave it at that, but the dates of the study are a real problem for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Paul, I'll wait until we have all the public comment before, if you guys do want to respond to any of those, just to avoid it back and forth and having us extend the meeting. Sometimes it can kind of take a while. So if you want to respond afterwards, you don't have to, but it's entirely up to you and your team.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Dennis, you're next. You have your hand raised. Good morning. If you could just identify yourself by your first and last name.
Dennis Clarity, 1 Harvest Road, Wakefield. You know, the Nahan Street ends at the high school, and as Mr. Lucy says, the other end is the junior high school. And a lot of kids walk down that street every day. It's sort of like a pedestrian passageway. Now, your entryway is 24 feet wide, and I think town bylaws limit your entryways to 20 feet. So that's perhaps another traffic hazard. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Next I don't know your name, unfortunately, but Stonham's iPad is the, you can just identify yourself by.
Hi, I apologize. It's Karen McMaster. I'm at work,
No
25
problem.
Nahan Street.
Good morning.
I've been following all this. I was really eager to listen to the traffic study. But honestly, the true account you're going to get are the people that live there every day. Your 3 days that you do it don't even hit the impact that we do with 724. I'm just thinking of not even just delivery trucks, are the people trying to exit there. You see the traffic that backs up. Even if it's only 10 people in those peak hours, they're not going to be able to exit that without hanging out on the sidewalk. Pedestrians, huge safety issue. More and more kids, the track team uses it. Dumpsters coming in and out of there, delivery trucks, people. I can't imagine the street being impacted any more than it already is. We live there. There are 10 times more accidents than what he's saying. Just to hit upon a couple that I think Lieutenant Anderson already said, the 2 telephone poles that were hit. We had no power for hours because the whole street was shut down. Not only that, but they had to have so many police on detail for all of that. Will this one project impact it? It's not going to help it. So again, the people that live there, it's not just us, it's all the side streets, Franklin Street. There's a huge cut through. I watch people turn around in the middle of Nahan Street to avoid the traffic. They turn around in our driveways. All those neighborhoods are going to be impacted by more and more traffic. And it's just a huge concern. You can't widen any or expand any of the sidewalks because there's no room. You can't make the street any wider. There's not enough room. It's very, very narrow. So I have a lot of concerns, and being where I am on my side, if I don't leave by a certain time, I can't get out. So I can't imagine what it would be like for the people over at 32 to try to get out in the morning. So, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Karen. Next is Colleen Palmer. If you could identify yourself by first and last name, please.
Sure, it's Colleen Palmer. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good, good. I live at 18 Nahant Street, and I apologize. I came in at 8:37, so this information may have been provided already. But I was wondering if someone could tell me what calculations were used regarding the minimal increase in traffic. Considering there's 26 units and I expect all those people would be working, I want to know what percentage was assumed to be public transportation people that would be walking to a bus or walking the half mile down to North Ave train station, because I think obviously that lessens the amount of car traffic, and I don't know if I believe that many people will be taking public transportation. And I was wondering if someone could address the water and sewer increase, if the infrastructure would be able to handle the volume change. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So for your last part, that would be something for the Board of Appeals to discuss. It'd be out of our purview for traffic advisory, but
I apologize. Okay.
No, not a problem. Just directing you the way to ask that question. That's all.
Thank you.
And Paul and Chris, I'll turn it back over to you if you want to respond to any of those. You're more than welcome to. If you want to have Scott touch upon a couple of things, and then we can discuss as a committee what we're looking for going forward for our next meeting.
Hey, Lieutenant Scott, did you want to address Chair Lucy's comments regarding the dates of the traffic study?
Sure. So, so the counts were, we did those counts. They were the week before Christmas. Christmas fell on a Monday. Those were done on a Wednesday and Thursday. So we think that they are representative. We did look at counts in the morning. We would, that 7 to 9 peak period would capture the school drop-off time frame. We also expanded the count period in the afternoon to 2 to 6, so that we made sure we accounted for the school pickup period. We did track pedestrians. They were part of the counts. And then, I think some of the I don't want to get into all the comments, but as far as just the last comment regarding the public transit increases, we did not take any credit for the residents using transit. We just assumed that they would all drive. So that provided a conservative estimate of impacts in our opinion.
And Scott, did we take a credit for the 2 existing houses?
No, that's the other thing. We did not take credit for the existing house, the 3 existing residential units on site.
I did provide you information for our traffic counts that we did for our signal design, right? I believe that we had provided that to you. I mean, how do those compare to your counts?
I'll have to go back and check. I know we had talked about it, and we had talked about changes at the intersection as part of the Envision project, but I'll have to go back and check to see to check those volumes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hey, that's all we have, Lieutenant Anderson.
All right, thank you very much. So Bill and Matt, just as our engineers, what would you like to see them come back with for our next meeting?
Just based on Bill's last question there, I think that would be helpful to see a comparison of the other available volumes for the intersection. One clarification on the December count. Scott, did you do a seasonal adjustment on those? I thought those traffic studies said there was an adjustment for December.
Yeah, yeah, 4%.
Okay.
Yeah, that was based on DOT.
That's a MassDOT, yeah.
The standard DOT data and adjustment factors.
So
Yeah,
Matt,
so I'd still be curious. Yeah. I mean, that's typical using the MassDOT seasonal adjustments for different roadway classifications. But I like Bill's point about the other available counts, just to see if that compares any differently.
Yep.
All right,
Not
and
being
then,
an engineer, but how do you count pedestrians?
Just observe them.
Yeah.
So you got a guy, with a little clicker or something?
Yeah, those days are kind of gone by, unfortunately, in some cases. But they do them through video camera recording, and they just capture the pedestrians crossing the legs of the street and at the intersections. So I mean, in some cases, certainly more pedestrian traffic in the afternoon than in the morning. But those are included in the counts.
I remember the days as an intern with the clicker. so.
Yeah. Right.
From my standpoint, just the comments on the overhang areas. And looking at the site plan for that, I think you could update the plan for the site triangle with the landscaping and also the snow storage. And then any signage that you would do for either the do not block the area and for delivery trucks. I think all that would be provided back to us.
One question on deliveries, maybe for Chris. Is there a package room or a mail room? And is it in the front of the building or the back of the building?
That's a good question. I believe that they're setting it up to be in the back of the building. Because it was a question that came up at the ZBA about strategically locating it to try to discourage the delivery people from going to the front door, which they might be inclined to park out on the street, for example.
Yeah.
But I can look into that and get back and have an answer for you next time.
And then Scott, if you and I can talk offline about the traffic crash data, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we'll have you folks back at a future meeting, probably next month.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 6, proposed residential development 119 to 135 Nahant Street. Transportation impact assessment and site plan review for a proposed 100 multi-family unit development there.
Good
Attorney,
morning,
is it Panos? Am I pronouncing
Lieutenant
that
Anderson
right?
and members of the, I'm sorry,
Am I pronouncing it right, Panos?
Panos,
Panos,
sure.
good morning. Good morning, Attorney Panos.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So there's going to be a little overlap between the last presentation and this one, and with regard to some of the general questions asked about traffic circulations on Hunt Street, but we're happy to go over anything that suits the pleasure of this committee, obviously, and even obviously repeat anything that that was asked previously. I'm joined with Scott Thornton of Vanessa and Associates, who also did our traffic impact assessment. What we propose are 100 units, 18 studio apartments, 1-bed, 46 units, 26 2-bed units, and 10 3-bed units for 133 parking spaces. To give you a little context, we have gone through, or we are in the process of going through a significant redesign from that which was originally proposed. You will see in a moment that the redesign proposes to shift the building more to the center of the site, so there's traffic circulation around all sides of the building off Nahant Street. However, the redesign is still in the process of being meted out with regard to internal traffic circulation within the site. However, the traffic impact assessment presentation you're going to hear is based on that redesign and its impacts on Nahant Street specifically. I literally just moments ago got the redesign plans. So I can very generally answer questions with regard to where we anticipate or propose trash pickup, our mail and storage room, that type of thing. But again, I don't want to speak specifically on that only because literally while the last presentation was being given, I literally got those plans.
Sure, understood.
And to add to a little bit more of the complexity, we are going through an engineering firm change. So Hayes Engineering is no longer working on this project. We are shifting gears to the Moore and Cameron Group out of Danvers. They have some work to do with regard to taking the existing site plan and taking them to the next level with regard to this redesign. So we are actively working with them now. The file transfer from Hayes to Moore and Cameron Group is really only happening as we speak. So again, internal traffic circulation is something that we would like to talk about in a future meeting, but we can answer certainly general questions regarding that. This is more, I think we're more prepared to talk about impacts on Nahant Street, ingress and egress, that type of thing, sightline distances, all of those items were measured. But specific questions about the internal circulation of the site itself, I think we're going to have to reserve to another meeting, only because a lot of these things are being fleshed out.
All right, understood.
And I don't have an engineer with me today for that reason. So I'm going to do the best I can, but I am the project attorney and not the project manager. So I will, as I said, between Scott and I will do the best we can to answer your questions as they relate to the specific traffic circulation within the site.
All right, excellent.
With that, Scott, if you could take it away.
Before Scott jumps in, can I make a statement, Joe?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So there's been a lot of discussion at the ZBA about Public Works delaying your traffic study and having dialogue. So you have me as a town engineer sitting on this, as well as the Public Works Director. And I can tell you that both of us haven't had dialogue in any way, shape, or form about that. So that's been completely misrepresented to the ZBA. And, just as a starting spot to understand that we're very disappointed that that would even happen. I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been on your side of the fence, and I've never misrepresented something so egregious. So, just want to make sure that all of our TAC members are also aware of that. And there's been plenty of delay on your end trying to get this traffic study here, including not coming to other meetings that have been offered to you through the chair. So, I just want to make sure that it's on the record here at the Traffic Advisory Committee.
So in
If
that
I could
regard,
answer that, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I could answer that, I can only represent what I've been told. I don't second guess what I'm told through our project engineers and the people who are on the ground. I have not been involved in engineering issues with regard to being invited to meetings we haven't showed up to. I don't think that's the case at all. We have asked for continuances of existing hearings, and we have granted commensurate extensions of timelines, but again, I am not in the habit of second guessing what I am told. If there were any misrepresentations made, I apologize, and I intend on moving forward. Pretty soon we'll have a fully fleshed out project team. Again, we're going through a transition, and we appreciate the latitude given to accommodate that transition in engineering. And we expect shortly, and I don't want to expand the focus of today's meeting beyond traffic, but we will be hitting the ground running and continuing with providing additional materials to the town for full evaluation of this project. But I'm looking forward, not back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Anderson, I just want to step in here. Mr. Panos, you stated with certainty in your emails and in the ZBA meetings that what Mr. Renault referenced. So, I'm glad you're looking forward, because you don't really want to look back, because those misrepresentations are are really a bad look for you and your team. And I got to tell you, it's been really, really frustrating. It's been enormously a difficult situation for the board to deal with, being having facts misrepresented to us. So I'm flabbergasted. I'm having even trouble speaking, that now you're just looking forward. That's great. But you've got a serious credibility problem.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going to make one statement before we move on to Scott, because Scott is he's a consummate professional, and I appreciate every time he's in front of us at TAC. I know that he does a great job, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say, because Scott always gives us the facts and is more than willing to kind of vet out anything that we have in terms of questions, and he always gives it to us straight. However, I will say that, I received the ZBA packet at the beginning of October, as I do routinely from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And it was a comprehensive permit application for this development. I reached out to you, Attorney Panos, and at the time it was Anthony, I'm probably going to butcher his last name, of Hayes Engineering, to have a traffic scoping meeting. That's nothing that's required of us, but we do offer it to developers just to help you, kind of narrow your focus on where your traffic study should be, so you don't have to come back to multiple meetings, because time is money, and I understand that. And and sometimes you have deadlines to meet, especially during a 40B. But that's not my purview. My purview isn't the deadlines, 40B development. It's to move forward anything that's on our agenda as a town. And I didn't receive any response back. I reached back out in November to see if you wanted to be on our December meeting. And ultimately, we did have a December meeting where we got to our traffic scoping. So there was a bit of delay there, but I just want it known to the committee and the public. The delay was not on behalf of traffic advisory. Typically, I don't reach out to developers. They reach out to me immediately upon filing an application to try to meet with us and discuss either their traffic scoping or to present the results of their traffic study. And that's on them whether they want to have a scoping meeting with us, have it informally or formally in front of a full traffic advisory committee meeting. It's only to the developer's benefit, though, to have a traffic scoping meeting and to not have to go back to the drawing board and have Scott redo his work, or have to do more work than is required. So I did hear quite a bit that this was delayed as a result of traffic advisory dragging their feet and not getting you into a meeting until December. That is absolutely not the case. And I will say it's a bit odd, because typically I don't have to reach out to developers and ask them if they want to come to a meeting, but I will leave it at that. That is the timeline of this comprehensive permit application as far as the traffic advisory committee is concerned. I did make efforts to reach out and to help you narrow your focus with your transportation impact assessment. So having said that, Scott, I will have you present.
Great. Thank you, Lieutenant. Can I share my screen? Okay, great. Okay. So similar format as done previously, with a little more detail on this this study and this presentation. As you indicated, Lieutenant, we met with the Traffic Advisory Committee in early December, and there were specific questions and comments that were raised to frame the approach of the traffic study. And I think we came initially with a study area of 3 intersections that was expanded to 6. There was a request for daily volume and speed data counts to be conducted over a daily period. And we did that for 2 days, for 24-hour or for a 48-hour period. Typically we do the counts from 7 to 9 in the morning on a weekday and 4 to 6 p.m. For the afternoon time period. That captures the critical time periods for residential developments. Traffic advisory asked us to extend that to include and capture the school drop off or school pickup period. So we did counts from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. There was a request to review traffic volumes on Nahant Street, although there's a truck exclusion for vehicles greater than 2.5 tons. There are still trucks that use that street, and I believe there's a DPW pit that's on Nahant Street. But there was a request to look at the truck volumes on using the street. There was also the request to review potential cut-through traffic volumes using Bennett and Traverse Street. Requesting site distances, crash data, transit availability. We would typically look at these things anyway, but these items were raised during that meeting in December. There was also reference made for some background development projects, and also including the roundabout project for the Farm Street and Hemlock Road and Nahant Street intersections that I had indicated previously. So this slide shows our initial study area. We were looking at Traverse Street, Middlesex Street, and Hart Street. 3 locations to identify the impact of the project. That was expanded out to this study area, basically adding North Ave and Main Street, Nahant Street, and adding the other end with Nahant Street and Farm Street, and then also the intersection of Hemlock Road with Farm Street. Again, time periods 7 to 9, 2 to 6. We did capture pedestrians and bicycle volumes. Not a lot of bicycle volume out there, but we also captured trucks and buses in the traffic counts, and those were factored into the traffic analysis. The existing conditions for the site, it currently holds 2 single-family homes and about a 4,500 square foot commercial manufacturing building. 2 curb cuts exist under existing conditions. The project entails raising the existing buildings and constructing a multifamily building of about 100 units. This was the initial site plan that I think was presented in December, with 1 access point to Nahant Street, a building over parking with a number of about 135 parking spaces. The proposed site plan that has been modified, that Attorney Panos was referencing, has a dual driveway design, promotes site circulation for emergency vehicles to circulate through the site. Has about 133 parking spaces, and again, this is as Attorney Panos mentioned, this is really it's a conceptual plan at this point. I think there's the concept and the design intent is there, but we need to flesh out more of the details that will be forthcoming as the new site engineer gets up to speed. What we're proposing here is a full access driveway to the east, and then a driveway to the west that's indicated right now to be an exit only. And so there's more details to be provided, obviously, as this goes through future levels of design. I thought it'd be important to touch on some of the existing conditions findings that we noted. The peak hours in the morning generally 7:30 to 8:30, but the afternoon peak hours were determined to occur outside the school peak hours, generally 3:30 to 4:30 or 3:45 to 4:45. I think the exception is the North Ave and Main Street and Nahant Street intersection, which might have peaked in the 4 to 5 range. But other than that, most of the locations along Nahant Street were peaking outside of when we would expect the school traffic and pickup traffic to be peaking. Nahant Street travel speeds, the average was 24 miles per hour eastbound, 22 mile per hour westbound. The 85th percentile speeds, again, what I mentioned previously in the presentation for the other project, 29 mile per hour eastbound, 26 mile per hour westbound. As you can tell, we used the same data for both projects to provide a consistent basis for analysis. The truck volumes that we observed during the morning peak hour observed between 9 and 10 trucks going on Nahant Street, and between 4 and 5 trucks during the afternoon evening peak hour, and those are based on the directions of travel. So it's 9 trucks were going in one direction and 10 trucks were going the other direction. I think these are eastbound and westbound movements, and then fewer trucks in the afternoon. As I mentioned previously, we did look at traffic using Traverse Street to Bennett Street to avoid the Main Street intersection. We did not see a lot of traffic in those movements in the right turn to Traverse or the left turn from Traverse during either time period. It worked out to be an average of between 2 and 5% of the intersection traffic volumes. And if there was in my opinion, if there was a significant cut through volume that was there, we would have seen, a much greater volume based on what's on Nahant Street and what's on Main Street. Really, what we saw was what we would expect to be generated by the housing units that are along those streets. And obviously there's a potential for some of that traffic to be cut through, but it didn't seem to be an excessive volume that was making that maneuver.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you know where the tubes were placed on Nahant for the traffic study?
It would have been just east of just before I speak, east of Middlesex Street.
Okay. Scott, you're muted.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we have you.
Great. So no tubes on Traverse or Bennett Street.
Okay.
But the other things we indicated or noticed, again, the bus route, 137 stop is a 8-minute walk from the site. T station, commuter rail is about a 15-minute walk from the site. And similar to the other project, we did not reduce the trip generation for the site, anticipating that people would be using transit for their commute. Although, we do think that that's likely to happen, we did not make any adjustments to the traffic generation because of that. We do expect the project to be a low traffic generator, and recognizing that it may be a little counterintuitive in terms of the trip generation. We don't expect a significant peak hour volume to be generated or to be added to Nahant Street. It's definitely some volume that will be added to the street. Not that we're dismissing it entirely, but they're for the 2 peak hours, the morning and the evening peak hours, it's a net increase of between 33 and 34 trips. Some of those entering and some of those are exiting. That's taken into account the trips generated by the existing uses that are on site that'll be removed to construct the project. And, in terms of trip increases, it's about a trip every 2 minutes during the peak hours. So again, not the kind of thing, obviously at the driveway, you're going to notice that traffic, but when you get further out from the site, it's less noticeable. In terms of the parking analysis, what we looked at were both a parking demand using ITE data, which has done the same thing with the parking analyses that they've done with the trip generation analyses, where they've gone out and they've counted parking demand at other multifamily buildings and have come up with demand rates. And for a 100 unit multifamily building such as this, ITE would indicate the parking demand to be 113 spaces. The proposed parking supply with this plan is 133, which exceeds that ITE suggested value. We also looked at the peak parking demand, which is the overnight period, from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council Perfect Fit Parking Series. It was an initial report that came out, I think, in 2019, 2020, and they've continued to update it. I think the latest update was through July of last year. And this is the same thing, only it's more localized. I think this is for this specific data, I believe, is from Medford and Malden, which are the closest developments to Wakefield that are on the same commuter rail. So we thought that those would be appropriate comparisons for this site. But so MAPC went and counted a bunch of developments, residential developments, during the evening time periods, found that in general, only about 70% of the parking spaces were being utilized. For these specific municipalities, they noted that the observed parking utilization rate was a little bit higher, but only at 72%. The observed parking demand rate was about 74%. However, the observed parking supply was slightly over 1 space per unit. And with this project, what's being proposed is a supply rate of 1.33 spaces per unit. So again, we think that that's where the trend is going in the area, with less parking. Most planning agencies are suggesting less parking for residential developments, particularly if they're nearby transit facilities such as this site. So we think that that's right in line with where the direction of parking supply is headed. In terms of the analysis summary, rather than go through each and every point, with the intersection operations and so on, I thought it'd be helpful to just have this kind of bullet point summary, where in terms of the intersection crash analysis, again, from the previous presentation, no intersections that were above the Mass DOT averages. And similar to the other project, Lieutenant, we can have that online or offline discussion about the crash data. The site distance analysis, both driveways meet the stopping site distance requirements. In terms of the intersection capacity analysis, no change in level of service at the 5 locations analyzed. Again, the Nahant Street and Farm Street intersection and the Hemlock Road and Farm Street intersection are due to be combined into a roundabout, which we analyzed, so that combines 2 of the intersections into one future condition. The parking analysis, the data from ITE and Perfect Fit indicate the supply rate exceeds the supply and demand rates observed nationally, as well as at Medford and Malden. We also did, noting that the speeds that were observed that were higher than the posted speed out there for 20. We had recommendations for Nahant Street traffic calming through radar speed feedback signs, and additional enforcement of the existing speed limit. And the speed feedback sign is similar to the location that's at the other end, at the eastern end of Nahant Street, where I think it's might be Partridge Lane is in that area. But that's a summary of the traffic study, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have a few notes here, and then I'll turn it over to the rest of the committee.
Excuse me, Joe. Joe,
Sure.
mind if I just say a quick word, because I got to jump off for.
Okay. Yeah, no problem, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say I completely support the statements by our chair of the ZBA, Mr. Lucy, by our town engineer on behalf of DPW, and yourself, Mr. Chair of this committee. And I think this meeting is a great example of that. We have we're not seeing any site plan, and there's a new site plan. I guess there was kind of one in the package there that he just showed that was dated sometime in March. I couldn't really see it. I guess there's a newer site plan that's coming. It's going to be very hard to kind of talk about the on-site areas, as was mentioned, and how that may affect sight lines going out, what's going on there. So I think it's kind of indicative, and not looking for a response, just wanted to support my staff here that does a fabulous job, including our volunteers, and I know they've been very frustrated, and I share it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayo. So Scott, you noted about 19 trucks. I wanted to talk about that for a minute. There's a few things that may happen in the future. One is the DPW might relocate the town gas pumps to the Nahant Street pit, and part of that reason is that site may alleviate some traffic congestion and queuing where it resides presently, which is on North Ave by Broadway. So that's going to increase quite a few trips there down Nahant Street to get to those pumps if they do end up moving them there. But that's a town benefit. That's to have them in a centralized location. It may be the future home of the DPW. That's an aging building there. So the DPW may relocate from their North Ave location to the pit area, which is town owned. That is that trip generation there would be for the entire town and the town's benefit there. So you may be seeing more trucks down Nahant Street and more vehicles in general for the purpose of the town at large and the town's benefit. So that's something that I just want to put on your radar that may be happening in the future. Another thing that I didn't really consider when we were doing traffic scoping, but I thought of the other day is that the DPW pit, it's open to the public April to December, every Wednesday, Saturday, and every other Sunday. That's a public service, and that has some trip generation there. So depending on the days of your study, you may not get a full accurate picture of the trips that are going down the Hot Street to access a public service, which is the DPW pit. And that's, as I said, it's a service for the whole town. We talked about the crashes, so we'll talk about that a little bit offline. We have data that shows 50 crashes during that time, so we may want to talk a little bit more about how those other 6 crashes looked. 412 trips proposed, so I would assume half of those are entering, half are exiting.
Yep.
That's a lot of trips on the Hot Street. I mean, I know statistically it may not sound significant, but we just talked about about 30 some odd units. This is 100 units. To put it into perspective, Scott, I don't think you were on for this development, but Crescent Commons, which was 44, 46 Crescent Street. I had a lot of public safety concern with that development there. And it wasn't nearly as dangerous of a street as Nahant Street. Crescent Street it's a little bit of a cut through, and we see some speeds and we see some crashes, but nothing like Nahant Street. No truck traffic really at all to speak of. We don't see the crashes like we do on Nahant Street. We don't see the speeding nearly as bad. It's another narrow street, and it's surrounded by residential side streets. So there were a lot of concerns. Some of them may not be similar to this development, but that was proposed at about, don't quote me, but it was a little over 50 units. The developer brought that down to in the low 40s, but they made some significant changes to the site plan. They didn't have the sightline distance issues that we have with this development. I don't think you can overcome. I think on this side of the road, you're woefully short with your sightline distances, and I appreciate what you're saying in your study about how most people don't stop, so many feet back. They creep up and and look out to see if it's safe to go that way. But the problem is, as some of the residents pointed out, Nahant Street is a pedestrian generator. It brings students to 3 schools off of Farm Street and 1 large middle school that's off of Main Street. So you couple that with just people that are trying to get to Breakout Reservation, the track team. I don't need to belabor the point, but it is a pedestrian generator, and the geometry of the road makes it not the best suited road to be on, but nonetheless, that's just where it's situated. So I think that people creeping out, kind of blocking some of the sidewalk or what's available there is going to force pedestrians maybe to walk around them. It's an unsafe situation. I'm not too comfortable with it from a public safety standpoint. We've had recent meetings where we've had residents complain on Franklin Street of speeding cars. Franklin Street is becoming quite a cut through. It's a narrow one way. But the problem with the queuing on Main Street is that sometimes we see traffic queuing on Main Street heading northbound as far back as JJ Round, which is a public park in town. When that happens, vehicles are trying to, get away from that intersection. They're speeding down Franklin Street, and they end up coming out onto Nahant Street. So that's where some of the cut-through traffic is coming from on the other side. This development would just increase a problem that's already existing there. The parking supply of 133 for 100 units, it doesn't meet the parking bylaw. And I understand this is a 40B development, but and I do appreciate that you use that perfect fit parking study, and I get why you used it. It makes the most sense when you think about it. But if you dig in a little deeper, Medford and Malden, those communities aren't Wakefield, for a couple of reasons. Number one, rapid transit. You have the Orange Line, so you're commuting to the Orange Line. You're walking there on foot. You have a train that's coming around pretty regular. The commuter rail, it's if you miss that one train, you're not making it to work, right? For another hour or so. So it's just a different. We do have the commuter rail, we do have the bus route. But those towns are just not, they're not Wakefield. It's just, there's no Orange Line here. There's no rapid transit. I think that our residents use the commuter rail much like the Orange Line is utilized. It's just different. The other thing too is those communities are situated just outside of Boston, and those that are residents of Boston that may want to move slightly out of the city may not be coming with a vehicle to begin with. So I think I understand why you use that perfect fit study, but I don't think that it's representative of Wakefield. And we don't know in that perfect fit study, or at least I don't, and maybe you can touch upon it, but those developments that were studied may have had the luxury of on-street parking nearby. Nahant Street just simply does not. You would have to go to side streets and clog up those side streets. And, my concern is if what I think is true, that the parking is very, very short, where are visiting nurses going to go? Where's the Uber Eats driver going to go? Where they're going to go is directly in front of that development, and they're going to walk the order in, or they're going to park on the sidewalk. And now, to your point, the cars that are creeping up onto the edge of the roadway to try to make up that short sightline visibility distance to try to see if traffic's coming, they're going to be blocked by a vehicle that's parked on the sidewalk or whatever's there on the side, and they're going to be obstructing their view, and then we're going to have a crash, and that's an issue, as we talked about in the last development. you know, we obviously don't know a whole lot about visitor parking spaces and deliveries because we need to see that updated site plan. So that's something for our next meeting. You know, on-site circulation and all of that. Dumpster removal, that's something that we'll talk about next meeting. I'm going to leave the sightline visibility distances to Matt and Bill, but that's something that I'm very, very concerned about. I just don't think that we have it. It's very short, 110 feet from the east driveway. It's just, it's not good. It's not good. You know, we've got the commuter rail. If people are going to be driving and parking at the commuter rail, they're going to be taking that left. If they're going to be heading toward 128, they're going to be taking that left. If they're going to go to the middle school, our downtown business district, everything is taking a left out of that driveway. And if your sightline visibility is really, really short, it's just a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. Most of our amenities as a town or destinations will be taking a left out of that driveway, as I just stated. So it creates an issue there. You know, we talked a little bit about our intersection level of service. I just think it's already at a D, and this is with 100 units. It's gonna trend that toward an F, and that's something that I think is unacceptable. Queuing, we talked about that with the other development, but queuing, in my opinion, causes aggressive driving. I can't tell you how many complaints I get, you know, in charge of traffic of aggressive driving, and a lot of it has to do with traffic backups and queuings. And you know, it's frequently on our agenda to paint those, you know, don't block the box, you know, don't block the intersection. I feel like every place in Wakefield's going to have one of those, you know, don't block the intersection signs and paintings. And I think it's part of a bigger issue that, you know, we have a lot of traffic in town, and it's just too much queuing. Fire response, we talked about that a little bit with the other development. I'll leave that to the fire chief, but having any type of a critical incident with a multifamily of this size on a street like Nahant is going to essentially shut down Nahant Street. It's going to require an entire shift of police officers who are already far too busy. It's 2024 and policing has completely changed, and we are very, very busy, and our officers are tied up for hours on calls. So if they're at a traffic crash or helping our fire department, you know, work a working fire or some type of an incident there, we're going to have an even bigger traffic issue there. You know, the measures you noted to curtail speeding, because I think, you know, you did note that there is a speeding problem as it stands on Nahant Street. The speed alert signs just don't work in that area, and I can tell you why. So on Oak Street, we put the same signs out. We own 4 of them as a town. I put them out periodically to help educate drivers of their speed. And Oak Street is another cut through that heads to 3 schools on Palm Street. The problem we have with those, Scott, is that the students were trying to race them during dismissal times. So I had to shut them off. So what initially was supposed to help slow drivers down, we had to actually remove and shut off because it did the opposite. So since this is a direct line to our 3 schools that are in the area of Farm Street, those speed alert signs just wouldn't be something that would help calm traffic, not at least on this road. I know they work in some areas in some certain situations, but that's just not, it's not going to calm traffic there. So the other recommendation was to increase speed enforcement there. I don't like the idea that this development is going to police department to have to be dedicated to Nahant Street and Nahant Street only in order to calm traffic for this development. It doesn't make sense. We don't have the resources to do it. We do the very best we can to enforce our traffic laws in town. But the bottom line is we have a lot of other more pressing matters. And I know that traffic is important, but we have domestic violence, mental health calls. We have serious calls that we have to attend to and try to de-escalate on a regular basis. And we can't commit to one street or even a couple of streets in town with any real consistency that this would require to calm traffic. And I don't believe that enforcement alone calms traffic. So that was the recommendations there. I just I don't think either of those are going to be feasible to calm traffic. I will turn it over to Bill and Matt to not only address the sightline distances, but anything that they have.
I think Bill's still tied up. Oh, Bill's back.
I
Okay.
just got back. Obviously,
Great.
I didn't hear the presentation, so I'll defer to Matt. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Just a couple of things I want to reiterate what the lieutenant said. Going back to the December meeting, I had requested that you plot the intersection site distance lines on the site plan. I know that you have a new site plan now, but that's definitely something I want to see because I have some big concerns about that. And like Lieutenant said earlier, there are a number of vehicles that are in that 33 to 36, 36 to 39, and greater than 39 mile an hour speeds heading eastbound. Those are cases where just providing adequate stopping site distance is not gonna make that driveway safe. Those cases, even when we have adequate stopping site distance, that's enough to avoid a collision, but that's making vehicles on Nahant slow down and sometimes slow down significantly. Just not really a comfortable situation for access there. So definitely want to see some more detail on the intersection site distance there, because I have a big concern about that, even at the 85th percentile speed, which may be skewed by the queues at either end of Nahant. Going back to parking, obviously we talk about parking a lot on this committee, and oftentimes with smaller residential developments, we're a couple spaces short and they're nearby side streets that may see some overflow. In this case, we're 20 spaces short of the requirement. I understand the ITE data and the perfect fit parking data, but I think with such a shortage, we'd be looking at spillover onto Traverse and people crossing the street because they can't find a parking spot. That's a concern of mine. And one more thing on the ITE data, it is correct that using the equation in parking generation, we come up with 113 vehicles, but worth pointing out that the weighted average would be 123 parked vehicles, and the 85th percentile would be 145. So, there's data there that shows that there definitely could be some concerns about the parking supply for 100 units.
And
That's
Matt,
all I have for you. Yeah, go
to
ahead.
your point about Traverse, it sounds like, well, what's the big deal if a handful of cars park on Traverse Street? But with the amount of queuing that we even saw on Google Maps, even though it's a little anecdotal, but still, it's happening, right? So people are using those streets. To your point in the December meeting, you wanted to see some of the cut through traffic there. So now if we're adding vehicles that are parking on streets like Traverse, it's narrowing that roadway width potentially, and it's creating more congestion there where vehicles are trying to escape the queuing, and it could potentially lead to crashes on side streets, or at least clog roadways there and more traffic backups. Bill, I'll turn it over to you if you're still with us.
Yeah, I'm still here. Just, I mean, I think one of the at least what I was hearing was for the comparison for the parking stuff, we were using Malden, which I don't think is a good comparison considering that's also a orange line stop. So, I mean, I think that's would skew your data completely. So I would also kind of echo what Matt had said about the weighted averages.
Right. Yeah, Scott used that perfect fit study, and I definitely get, they're the closest towns to us. So I definitely understand why he did, why he made that comparison. It's just, I think, like you said, we're just a different community. We have a commuter rail versus, a subway system or a more rapid transit system that's used more regularly by those who don't own a vehicle or are walking to their method of transportation. So it's different here. But I definitely understand why Scott used it.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect fit is really good data. It's really expansive. But with any data set, you're gonna run into where you're just not gonna have the apples to apples comparison.
Right.
And with the numbers being so short, I definitely have concerns.
Dan, do you have anything for us, or Lois?
As far as the on-site parking or the site plan or rendition, whatever it is, have we ever dealt with so much tandem parking? I think 10% of the parking is tandem. I mean, that's really squeezing it in.
All right, do we have anything from our police or fire chief? Chief Score?
The only thing I can say is, looking at the new plan and the amount of parking, I don't think that there's enough parking there. And, I know there's science that goes into the peak hour numbers. I'm just not buying it. I just see this building generating much more traffic than what I saw in those numbers.
Thank you, Chief Sullivan.
Thanks. Yeah, I have quite a few concerns regarding this project. First of all, I need an accurate site plan, which everybody, pretty much everyone else here has echoed. I can't make an intelligent assessment of how we can access the property until I have that. I'm also very interested in the width of both driveways to this site. Also, if there's any change in elevation between the main parking lot and the Hart Street. I think the project's going to generate more traffic trips than it states. I'm very alarmed by the lack of parking for the development. It is going to result in parking on neighborhood streets. I can also see illegal parking being a problem. I've been told that that's not my problem before, but unfortunately it is my problem. So I have quite a few reservations about this project. And frankly, the first step to answer some questions would be to get a good, accurate site development plan.
No, to your point, Chief, I think you and I spoke about it at the Crescent Commons development meeting. You know, illegal parking, even if it's momentary, right? Even if it's an Uber Eats driver or an Amazon delivery driver on a narrow, windy road that sees excessive speeding, excessive traffic volumes. It's a posted truck exclusion road, but it still sees a fair number of trucks that don't abide by that exclusion, and some that are exempt from it, like town-owned vehicles get into the pit are exempt from that exclusion. So when you add all of that up, and then you add poor sightline visibility exiting that driveway, looking left toward Main Street, and you have an Uber Eats driver or an Amazon driver parked there just illegally for a temporary amount of time, that's where the recipe for a crash and injuries comes into play. It's you know, it doesn't sound like a lot that somebody might park there illegally for a moment or two, but they might park there for longer too. And I think that even a situation where you can predict illegal parking temporarily with all of these circumstances creates a public safety issue. And I'm not comfortable with that. There's too many things that are pointing in the direction that this is not safe. If you can't see pulling out of that driveway on a good day and you have to creep up right up to the edge, then if there's some other factor that makes that even worse, I think certainly we're going to see an increase in crashes.
Yep, I agree.
Anybody else from traffic advisory before I turn it over to the public? All right, members of the public, if you could raise your hand, and I will call on you by name.
I can't get there.
Mr. Lucy first.
Thanks, Lieutenant Anderson. I just want to really reiterate some of the points that I heard. The board, again, I'm on the Board of Appeals, and we have talked about the serious concerns about the density and the massing of this project. Again, we don't have the material either to talk about the internal movement on the site, which is obviously a big safety concern. The fact that it doesn't meet the parking requirements for Wakefield. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the comparisons to Medford and Malden don't fly for me and aren't appropriate. It's not the same situation. So the sight lines are obviously a very big concern as well. And again, to reiterate what we said before, the number of student pedestrians on this street is enormous, with the high school and Woodville on one end and the middle school on the other end. And if you're talking about cars creeping out into the driveway to have to see with, if you're looking, trying to take the left, you're looking left and you're not seeing the students on the right-hand side. I see significant public safety issues here as well. Again, we don't have a full, par for the course here. We don't have a full picture of what we're dealing with as it comes to this project. So I'll obviously be staying tuned to this committee going forward and share the information that we've heard today with my board members as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Tom. Mr. Conway, good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me. Couple of things that I have concern with that haven't been brought up yet are the size of the new high school and the size of the new Voc school. As far as the student population of the new high school and the population of the staff, and that being true of the new vocational school and their staff. How much bigger are those two buildings going to be, and how much traffic is those two projects alone going to generate? Another point is, I hear about crashes on Nahant Street and studies and looking up from the state. One place I would recommend to start is at the guardrail at Birch Hill Avenue and Nahant Street. I've lived off Nahant Street for over 35 years, and I can't tell you how many times that guardrail has been replaced right in that particular area. You talk about utility poles from the Farm Street end all the way down to about 25 Nahant Street. Take a ride down there today. There's 4 or 5 poles that are brand new, wooden poles that have been replaced in the last 6 months. I've lived off Nahant Street, like I say, for over 35 years, just in the area of between Travis Street and Valley Street. I've seen those poles split, 5 and 6 poles within a 6-month period. The road's too narrow. Another point is, if you come out of Travis Street facing Nahant Street, call it to the south, when you pull out with your car or small truck, whatever you have, and you're looking for the line of sight to the left, the old building, the old apartment building that's on the left-hand side, you have to actually pull out, stick your nose of your car or your truck out almost into the roadway of Nahant Street to see the traffic coming from Farm Street towards Main Street. That's true of Wilson Road and Coolidge Road. Anybody that lives off of those streets, if you're coming out any time of the day, you have to stick the nose of your car out of your truck, almost out into the lane of Nahant Street, which is the same side of the road as where they want to put the new building. That's one of my problems. They haven't even talked about the additional building at 10 Broadway, where the old Mike's Gym is. That's going to generate over 100 cars there. Everybody goes, oh, no one's going to use Nahant Street. That's a joke. Everybody says they've done studies, and all the people that will live in these new buildings on Nahant Street that they're proposing, everybody's going to take the commuter rail. I was on studies with the commuter rail down along North Ave. I used to have to take every individual registration number of every car parked in the angle parking spaces along North Ave when it was active, when it was really busy down there. And 70% of the cars that parked along North Avenue were non-Wakefield residents. They came from Andover, Middleton, Stoneham, and they used to come over and drive their car and park their cars there for the day. So my point is, You go down North Ave today where the angle parking spaces are, from West Water Street all the way down Prospect Street, most of them are vacant, okay? Everybody says, well, everybody's gonna ride the commuter rail. Not everybody works in Boston out here. Everybody works in Andover, Tewksbury, Lowell, and they're not gonna ride. Where's the commuter rail gonna take them if you're going to Lawrence or someplace like that? Like you said earlier, what's gonna happen? You missed that one train. When's the next train coming? 2 or 3 hours later, maybe a day later. It's not gonna happen. We're not on the commuter rail. I don't understand. The other thing isn't in the study, when they do the traffic study, after school, you brought up the pit, that people use the pit on Wednesdays and on weekends to bring down their compost and things. We haven't talked about all the after school activities. There's football games, whether it's the Voc school, the high school, the track. Currently, it'll be the, I don't know what they're gonna do down there now, the baseball field, night schools, for the Voc, there's always a night school up there from September to probably till May. And there's traffic coming from every which way. That hasn't been talked about. Kids, that are in, recitals or plays, drama club. That school isn't busy just from, 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. There's a lot of activity going there till 9, 10 o'clock at night at both schools. And the other thing is, we don't know the answer to buses. With the new Voc school, they increased the student population. Everybody forgets. A lot of those kids come from Winchester. They come from Stoneham. They come from Woburn. We're going to need more buses coming over there. All these other developments in Wakefield. We're going to have more buses. When they build all these buildings, everybody will tell you, well, we're all set. We don't need any more schools. We got plenty of room. We don't. And there's going to be, like I say, staffing it, more staff for the schools, whether it's the Voc or the high school, Woodville schools at capacity, Dalby schools busting at the seams, and we keep building. We're gonna need more services. And like you said, Wakefield owns 150 to 180 vehicles, whether it's police, fire, public works, school department, and if they move the fuel depot down there, all those vehicles got to go there once a day, at least once a day, to service them, whether they're fire trucks, and that's 24 hours a day. Service just the town's vehicles alone. With that, I'm all set.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Any other members of the public? You can raise your hand. Or unmute and identify yourself by first and last name.
Paula Gardella, 10 Wilson Road in Wakefield.
Morning, Paula.
Hi, I just want to reiterate everything that's already been said, but how we can actually believe that putting in 133 extra vehicles is not going to impact Nahant Street is just insane to me. I live on Wilson Road, as I said. I agree with Joe Conley. It takes me Conway hours, at least minutes to get out of my road, and my way out is through Travis to Bennett. So somebody should put some pipes there to evaluate, because I'm doing that now. Every single day I avoid Nahant. I go down Travis, I cut through Bennett. That's my route. I would never dream of going down Nahant Street, even though I go to MG Fitness, the gym. I still won't go down Nahant Street. It takes forever to get through that light. So again, the place is too big. It's too big for this area. It's too big. And that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. All right, final call for any public comment. Any other further comment or discussion from members of Traffic Advisory? All right, Attorney Panos, I'll turn it back over to you and your team. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. We have nothing further to add. As I indicated, we're going to keep moving forward with flushing out our site plan and providing the additional information that came of this meeting. And we'll continue to keep open communications with the town in that regard.
All right, thank you very much, and we look forward to a future meeting with your team.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, is it your intention to meet monthly or pretty much schedule as needed?
We schedule as needed, but I could have one for next month. So
Okay.
I'll touch base with you and Scott, and I'll let you know what that date looks like. And in the meanwhile, Scott, you and I will touch base on a few things from the last two agenda items.
Yep, exactly.
Excellent. And we'll start including our new engineer in the conversations as well.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 7 is a sign request. Request to review Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 16B, and 540 CMR 2700. See if no idling signs are required to be installed in schools. Bill, did you guys, Bill and Matt, did you guys take a look at this?
Yeah, I did. We have an air and noise engineering group in within VHB that I touched base with them on. They said typically they use those signs on construction sites, not so much for this type of application. I don't know if it's if you want to keep just adding signs to that type of location, that sort of pick up drop off area, or if you'd rather instruct buses to if they arrive there early, turn their engines off. But our air and noise folks didn't say that having vehicles, it wasn't required. Oh yeah, we didn't really get into the legality of it, but having just normal automobiles idling isn't as big of an impact as a construction vehicle or a bus. So it seemed like it could be handled by just instructing buses not to leave their engines idling. I don't think they dwell that long, but I'm not sure how long they dwell at that location. So
Yeah.
The legal brief that I received from Counselor Vincent, which was very well done. It does seem like the spirit of the law is to require us to have these signs at all schools, but then when you look at it, it's all primary, secondary, preschools. It was pretty much everything, and I just can't imagine that they want the signage up at every single school in every jurisdiction. So I did reach out to some of our neighboring towns. Most did not have them. Some did. The ones that did, they did not seem to conform to the language that was spelled out in that chapter and section. And the ones that did have the signage had no idea what the rationale was for it, whether it was required by law or what the reason was for it. So I did my best to get to the bottom of it and see if we're required to do it, or why other towns did it, if they were doing it to be in compliance with Mass General Law or the CMRs. But I couldn't get a good answer on it. Bill, this come up in Concord or anywhere else?
Yeah, it did, and we didn't end up installing them just because we didn't want our at the time our select board didn't want to have signage everywhere. So yeah, we didn't do it. There was some asks. I think it got put up in one location and taken down. I think we've kind of done the same thing here. So
okay. All right. So why don't we'll table this, and I'll get back to Councilor Vincent, and we'll see what the town council's intent might be with this. If this is something that they think that we should be in compliance with, and they would like to have the DPW install signage, then we can cross that bridge. I'm not 100% that it seems like it's required, but there's a lot of laws on the books that are very antiquated, and through time they were just never taken off the books, and nobody ever complied with it, and it's not something that is really really much of a requirement, because no one's enforcing it, and probably should have been taken off the books at some point. I think this may be one of those, but I think we'll table this for now.
Didn't we have those at the end of Audubon Road at one time for the trucks?
I'm not sure. We may have, Dan. This was more specific.
Neighbors gave the refrigeration warning.
Yeah, we may have put some up there for that purpose, but this was actually a specific chapter and section that seemed to require us to do it, although no one seems to be in full compliance with it in any neighboring towns. So I don't know that we need to be the first to put a sign up at every single school that we can find in town, unless it's we receive some other information from somebody that we have to. I just don't know that I think it's a little antiquated. Mr. Mayo?
Yeah, I just might suggest that we bring in Town Council Mullen
Okay.
on this issue, because the CMR does seem to indicate that on school grounds, there should be signage, and I get it, but maybe let's get Tommy's take on it as well.
Okay. I think that's a good plan. All right, we'll move on to item number 8, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve 8A, December 1st, 2023?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mayo, second by Bill Renault. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion to approve the minutes for February 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mayo, second by Bill Renault. All in favor? Aye.
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 And finally, February 16th, 2024, those meeting minutes. Let me guess. Mr. Mayo?
So
Bill Renault.
moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Item number 9, any matters that we didn't anticipate for this agenda? Or can we hold off until next meeting since we're almost at 11 o'clock?
I might have something for next meeting, Joe, just related to the bike and ped thing. So
Okay,
a
perfect.
couple of streets that we're looking to potentially stripe. So
Okay, sounds good.
And I think, Joe, I might have sent you something on like a no outlet sign somewhere.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
like
I'm
Walton.
going to add that to the May meeting. That's an easy one.
Thank you.
Steve, how's the snow budget going?
It was better before the other night.
It's still good.
It's still good. I wasn't happy for a lot of reasons when that plow woke me up.
It was cheap. It was cheaper than salt. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, good. That's what I figured. I rolled back over and
All right, we're going to move on to item number 10. Do I have a motion to adjourn? I really
Mr.
appreciate
Clardy-
everybody's work on
Mr.
these.
Clardy has his hand up.
Oh,
Or is it-
I'm sorry. Dennis?
Yes, there is a solution to this problem of 40Bs. I mean, it seems like everyone's complaining about it. It's the 40Bs, and put 100 units on Nahan Street is absolutely ridiculous. We all know that, but the law is the law, and you have to obey it. So there's going to be 100 units or somewhere close to that on Nahan Street. So right now you have a situation where 3% of the town, as of right, can build a four units. So every lot that's a single family is allowed to build 4 units on that lot. Now that only covers 3% of the town. So what happened in Los Angeles is that they said that every lot that was a single family lot, you could build 4 units on that lot. And now that was LA County, and that was over 1,000 square miles. Now what happened in LA was that you didn't have a situation where historic buildings were being torn down to build 4 families. What happened in LA was almost nothing. So eventually this Commonwealth is going to pass a law saying that as of right, you can build 4 families on each lot, even if it's zoned for single families. I mean, that's coming. I mean, this is the 3% of the town is it's where the historic buildings are. And they're liable to be torn down to build 4 families. So if you amend your bylaws to allow 4 families on every lot that was zoned single family or 2 family, there will be almost no change. So may I suggest that you amend your bylaws to allow any lot, approved lot, to allow 4 families on that lot. I mean, that's eventually going to happen in this Commonwealth because we need housing.
Mr. Mayor, is that is bylaw review committee? Who would be a good
Well,
place
I
to?
think there's a couple of things probably not for this committee. And I
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
always
I think
Dennis
that
for his comments.
it's a good point. It's just
Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B, to qualify as a affordable unit, you need to have a regulatory agreement, number one. So units would have to be affordable to meet the current state of the state law. Now, maybe that will change, as Dennis says. I will tell you that Wakefield, if everything that is on the books is pending, and not including the 2 projects we talked today, would be completed, we'd be at or slightly above 10%. So we are doing that anyway. But if Dennis would like to probably talk to our new planner to talk about that is something that certainly would be could be looked at.
well, thank you,
With an
everybody.
interesting dynamic, Dennis, as always.
Because every 10 years, they review the affordability factor.
The new census comes out, and I'm working with the new census numbers. We just got it. Yep.
Okay, so I mean that will be 2030, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. So if we get ahead of the curve to allow affordable housing, it might be something to consider, because then you won't have any 40Bs.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
Okay.
Something to consider. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay. You're welcome.
Well, thank you, everybody, for your hard work on item 5 and 6. Much appreciated.
You, Chairman. Thank you.
And we will we'll continue to press forward for a meeting in May. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Bye.
10:48. Thank you very much.